Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you a psychophage video. You're probably a bit surprised that I'm covering the psychophage change before some of the other things, but I have to give GW credit where I might not have given them enough initially. If you looked at my first impressions on the changes, I wasn't too high up on this, because that means that I miss my six up feel no pain or a psychophage. One that I've come to be okay with and like enough, right? But after some reflecting, I should, before anybody's hopes get too high with this, I'm not going to say that this is actually perfect, amazing, and all these things. It's not that high up. I've made peace with the changes because I realized GW somehow found access to my notebook, to my cloud notes, and for that, hey, if you keep taking ideas, you know what? I'm not even going to be fussed about it. What do I mean? So I had planned a video, or I was planning one, into which I wanted to talk about things that I would like to see, like a bioform I would like to see in Tyranids, and one of those being a fast monster with crab legs. Like, I like the legs of the pyrovore, biovore. I like those out of our range when it comes to having legs. Compared to the hooves, right? That's me. And I wanted it to be fast, and I wanted to have some amount of a ranged attack, and that's all I really wanted. Now, if you throw in feel no pain and smoke on top of that for a little bit of durability, that's something I was looking for. And I know GW probably is like, man, this bitch will never be happy because I know he's talked about looking for bonus AP on weapons. And yeah, there's bonus AP now for our melee weapons. So, to that, I have to say, GW, my bad. Somehow you've given me what I've wanted, and sometimes we don't realize that's what it is until later. So, go one, GW. But now talking about a bit more past my fantasies of Tyranid inclusions, is the psychophage that good? I think it's fair. I think it's fine. It still is 120 by 92 millimeter base that you have to deal with, and that's one thing that I would like to caution everybody with. It has a 12-inch range flamer, and because it's a monster, if you try to follow up this flamer situation, for everybody that doesn't know what the new change is, let me read it real quick. Sorry, got ahead of myself. Biostimulus. In your shooting phase after this model has shot, select one enemy unit hit by one or more of those attacks. Until the end of the turn, each time a friendly Tyranid unit makes a melee attack that targets that enemy unit, improve the AP characteristic of the attack by 1. The same enemy unit can only be affected by this ability once per turn. It still has Feed and Frenzy. Each time this model makes a melee attack that targets a unit that is below its starting strength, add 1 to the hit roll. If the target is also below half strength, add 1 to the wound roll as well. Now, yes, in an ideal world, Biostimulus current ability would be Feeding Frenzy, so you get a 6 up Feel No Pain aura and a plus 1 AP in the melee. In a perfect world, and I'd pay, up to like 130 for that. But, I understand why they did it, right? So going back to some of the things. Oh, and real quick, I just want to point out, thinking about it, this is the melee equivalent to the Pyrovore, and they're both harvesters. And even further to that point, I'm glad that like so many of the monstrosities here have found the biomass. I was going to say found the light, but I was stretching it. It's early. Give me a break. Found the path of assimilation swarm. I think enough of harping of, hey, this is like really good, and I don't know why nobody's playing it. Attracted enough people, enough monstrosities to really kick up assimilation swarm. Now I'm not saying that I had anything to do with it really, but I'm glad that people have found that and have told me in the comments, so that's cool. But yeah, Pyrovore, remove cover. So that's essentially plus 1 AP in range. Now you got the melee equivalent with the Psychophage. So, there's a little bit more cohesion than I initially gave GW credit for. Now, I could sit here and we could go through all of the melee profiles ever to ever be meleeed in Tyranids to talk about what this is good with. And going back to what I was saying about the monster thing, monster means you two monsters, like Psychophage is monster, and if you try to follow up a haruspex with that attack, you might run into traffic jams. You have the base situation, you can't just crawl over your own monster if you're a monster that doesn't have fly, right? So, like, if you want to get your winged hive tyrant in there, go for it. Or your hive crone, or something. You can do that, but, not looking like a situation to be done. Now, on the flip side of that, it's 12-inch range on the flamer. So, this is why I think what GW did here is arguably better too, because it it gives flexibility. The way that I currently see the Psychophage is, yeah, I have the option to increase AP in melee for one of my units that might be in combat off to the side of me. Maybe my Psychophage might not make it to the battle, and I know that I got that charge over there that's within a foot of my Psychophage. I can just do that really good. It's not saying that, hey, things within engagement range of the Psychophage, uh, bonus AP. They could have easily done that, but I like that the Flamer now has flexibility. I can see a lot of scenarios where you just use your Psychophage, and then your Psychophage's Flamer, the Psychoclastic Torrent, right? And then you follow it up with the Psychophage itself, and now you're just hitting with AP3 for 6 attacks. That's fine. That'll kill some Marines. And hey, if you're targeting a unit that is below starting strength, because cough cough, you flamered them a little bit, +1 to hit, so now you're hitting on 2s. And if you even manage to get them below half strength, -1 to wound, right? That's nice. That's how I see this playing out, and just taking out enough units like that, a 5-mana bullshit that is just in your face, and then you go prop your Psychophage down somewhere and do that. But because you do have this torrent, that means you can fling it somewhere else if that's the case. But trying to get both units into something might be a bit tough. Because of the base, it might be a bit tough, or meaningful amounts of it, right? Because you can probably get, a couple of Hormiguns into the same target that you charge with the Psychophage. But, things like that. I think you want to focus, currently, I'm seeing a focus on things of that equivalent. I'm not seeing too many multi-monster charges being realistically possible amongst terrain and, again, traffic jam situation. Like, trying to have both of your monsters within enough range to bang out a pretty safe charge, right? Now, mind you, we've all failed the 3-inch charge and re-rolled it before, but just safe enough ranges for some charges and go about that. But something uh, like a Lictor, right? Everybody loves the Lictor. Add that over here. Everybody loves the Lictor, okay? A Lictor that finally gets in danger, I guess, because, it's alone up, has stealth. Finally get into the situation of your Lictor being in trouble, right? Your Lictor might end up getting into combat, fights first, and now you have something that might trade it out, if not you being the aggressor, because your little Flamer now takes your Lictor to AP3, right? Everybody likes the Lictor. I don't think that I'm, like, really scheming that enough or well enough in that sentence, but the position of it is to say that it makes the trading a little bit better. Right now, I'm not saying that we might have more of those double Psychophage lists that we saw because, the aura's gone, but we also might at the same time if we see just a bunch of lists that have the new hyper adapted Raveners and leading Raveners compared to like Brewlord Gene Stealers that have the dev wounds or something. rise up in something like Invasion Fleet. Okay, maybe not Invasion Fleet. You're probably getting sustained there. And the lethals you have it's anti 5 up, so like technically it's not really hurting anybody without the devastating wounds, but something like that. If there ends up to be a rise in our list where we have infantry delivering melee, like I should say, the couple of lists before the balanced data slate drop finally saw the power of Hormigons themselves. I remember one list, Jacob, who we've seen before, had a list name that I had to translate, so I'm not even going to attempt to say it in the native language, but the Google Translate basically said, like, ha, you can't discard Cull. Um, that was pretty funny because it was 20 man of Hormigons. So you have to stick around with that. So if we see more lists, and also there were a couple of other like Invasion Fleet lists that had about, I want to say, anywhere between 20 to 60 Hormigons. Yeah, I could see us getting much more use out of maybe a double Psychophage list coming back once more. But for what it's worth, 110 points, 12 inches of movement, T9, 3 up save, 10 wounds, 5 up feel no pain with smoke, and can increase AP. This is a pretty decent tech piece. It's a pretty decent tech piece. I do miss the feel no pain because that's the last real defensive thing that we have. Yeah, we can give a 6 of Invuln with Zoes. That means I have to run more Zoes or not, maybe. Who knows? The Venom Tropes, stealth for not monsters, stealth, stealth and the benefit of cover for everybody, or benefit of cover for everybody, stealth for non monsters. Like, that's fine, but the feel no pain and the detachment that doesn't give the feel no pain, unfortunately, just gives you more incentive to just still stay in Invasion Fleet because you have a 5 up in Invasion Fleet, and your Harvesters have it in Assimilation Swarm, but, not everywhere else. So, I don't know, it reduces the flexibility of things like Synaptic Nexus or Crusher Stampede, taking away that feel no pain, taking away those builds that were possible. Hell, it kind of hurts the Assimilation Swarm Tyrant Guard build even further that was already starting to go on the decline without that feel no pain too. Now, on the flip side, you could say that, yeah, now if I hit something, my Tyrant Guard brick now can hit with AP2, AP3. Jury's still out on which one you actually take, but the agreement is that you aren't going for damage with a Tyrant Guard anyway, so who gives a fuck, right? But, at least you're going for AP2 at that point if a Psychophage is in the mix. And to that extent, I'd say you probably want to look at Bone Cleaver, Lash Whip, and Rending Claws if that's the game plan. But, who knows on that front. So, there's trade-offs, there's definitely trade-offs, and where can you go with this? Well, first, yeah, you definitely can still stay in Assimilation Swarm. I think there's nothing wrong with there being an Assimilation Swarm, and honestly, it might even be a better Distraction Carnifex than the haruspex. There's a 15-point difference, right? There's a 15-point difference. Let's go to the haruspex. And the haruspex is definitely harder hitting. Same base, which is funny. Haruspex is T11. 3 up save, 14 wounds. You have a 5 up feel no pain and smoke, 2 less toughness, 4 less wounds. But the smoke might save you just as much as being T11. And the 5 up feel no pain might save you just as much as a wound difference. There's trade-offs here, but the other thing is that the Psychophage now gives you the flexibility of boosting some AP Grizzly Spectacle if you decide to opt into the Assimilation Swarm build that has a Neurolictor include, a Neurolictor 2 include, right? It has its ways, but Your opponent might be more scared of a haruspex because it's T11 and 14 wounds, and not every army is able to handle that handedly, right? They might not have it in spades that we're going for that, but for 15 points left, you get a buffing piece that, even if it's not going to do the damage output that you're looking for from this guy over here, and now it's competition in the fact that it is 12 inches of movement and can be, just clogging up some shit. So, it has its trade offs, and I just, to the point of comparison and assimilation swarm, I think this is now fine enough that hell, even now thinking about it without, this being the original intent, some of the builds that we've seen between Assimilation Swarm and Invasion Fleet, and hell, even Crusher Stampede, that did start exploring the double and triple haruspex, yeah, I could see them pivoting to a double or triple psychophage for a couple of points less, and just boosting the AP of whatever you want to do overall now with a flamer, right? Compared to the one precision attack. Now, it's not to say that these are the best comparison one to one, like at all, in any capacity, right? Like if you need a haruspex in your list, you need a haruspex in your list, right? That's what you need for that list. And if you need a psychophage in your list, that's what you need. But it is to say that in some builds, if you are just trying to save points and see the exploration and just put, 30 wounds in your opponent's face with a 5 of feel no pain, and each one can pop smoke. And just a reminder what smoke does, because I do have to keep in mind that newer players and newer people to the hobby come in here. I was going to do this earlier, but brain went in a direction. Smoke screen. Your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has selected its target. One smoke unit from your army that was selected as the target of one or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Until the end of the phase, all models in your unit have the benefit of cover and the stealth ability. So, Psychophage essentially says, hey, -1 AP no matter where I am, and -1 to be hit, if you have the command points for it. And a 5 of feel no pain. So that'll give you the durability to just throw this motherfucker in things that need to be thrown into. And even if it's not a psyker, right, with the anti-psyker 4 up, you still have devastating wounds. So rolling a couple of 6s on a target that, just needed to be tied up for the moment, still has its, trade-off and its results. It's good outcomes on that front. So Psychophage is not looking like a bad piece. I wouldn't be fussed if anybody included the Psychophage in their list. I wouldn't go, oh, why would you do that? You don't have any melee units. And it's like, well, the Psychophage still is a melee unit for most intensive purposes, right? If you're not skewing towards it, yeah, fine. I think that's still fine. But if you just need something to follow up a lictor or just be an annoyance compared to maybe gargoyles, yeah, now again, they serve different purposes. Gargoyles can deep strike, shoot, and scoot. But if you're just trying to like move up the board and put a distraction Carnifex again, I think this is a better distraction Carnifex. And well, we know that most of our things are now better distraction Carnifexes than the Carnifexes. I guess I should explain that term for people new around here too. I I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, but yeah, distraction Carnifex means, hey, your opponent goes, that thing's scary. It's going to eat my face. I need to put a lot of resources into taking that thing down. And you go, and man, I really didn't give a shit, but it was a win-win for me. Yeah, I'll lose 110 points, but, that saved my 290 point unit of the hyper adapted Raveners, with Raveners from going down, right? That's what we're looking at when we say distraction Carnifex. Like, yeah, you worry about that thing moving towards you. Don't worry. Don't keep in mind the giant fucking Norn that's trying to get to its objective, And it's nothing but benefits on to you, really, because, like, yeah, you either shoot the Psychophage or you don't, and if you don't, guess what? Now you have to deal with a monster eating your face. Slowly but surely. So, there's that. Now, past assimilation storm, of course. The natural one to also look at is Crusher Stampede, and that's again where I worry about the traffic jam. And I use that term to mean, hey, you will accidentally block yourself up if that's what you're really building towards. Now, again, if you want to just do some mix and matching of previous builds and you still retain exocrines, and swap out some points to put psychophages where haruspexes were, yeah, maybe now you might be able to fit one more action deep strike something other, or you might fit that Norn that you didn't quite fit before that had to be a Maleceptor. Something like that. I think Crusher Stampede allows you to do things. And hey, re-rolling hits with rampaging monstrosities into devastating wounds. Uh, of course, wounds, hit roll, and wound roll are different, but we like the more hits the merrier. Can do that. Add in Savage Roar to you already having smoke. That means that your opponent will be -1 to hit against these things a lot of the time, more times than they really plan to be. You still have, Deadly Demise 1. So if you just need to turn on your army rule, or your detachment rule of Curse of Stampede being below starting strength to +1 to hit for tiered monsters, you can even blow yourself up, and it won't be nearly as bad as rolling D6 or D3 for most of our monsters and seeing what the fuck happens, right? You have Untrammeled Ferocity to get through things, right? You can use Untrammeled Ferocity to get your Psychophage moving, especially with 12 inches of movement. That's fine. And Massive Impact, mortals, bonus mortals, while you might be looking to do even more mortals with Devastating Wounds. And on to the topic of Anti-Psycho 4-up, it's not the most needed thing in the game right now. It's not. But there will, every now and again, be a great unclean one with Endless Gift that needs to be removed. And it is a psyker. So if you hit a couple of 4s on the wounds, yeah, that Endless Gift Great Unclean one is going down faster than people intended, especially after getting shot with, Tyranids missing one shot and then them saving the other. So, it has its things. So, for the most part, I think I can give GW the green light. The Psychophage is kind of a good include. I don't think it makes every list, and I still don't think it makes most lists. If I'm being honest, it doesn't necessarily become better than other things that we have, and it doesn't necessarily boost the game plan we were already doing because we knew we couldn't do it. This just makes it feel better when we were trying to do some things. And that's the other thing. If it's just bonus 1 AP for some shitty attack that just happens to now happen, like, yeah, my Norn Emissary, now we're talking about AP3 for my Norn Emissary's attacks. I was never hoping that my Norn Emissary was, tussling in melee. It's a tank. And if anything, I'm looking at the range profile. I know you go, that's a lower number than that, so that's kind of weird for you to do that in hit, but 10 attacks, this giant monster, I wasn't necessarily aiming for this one to be a melee combatant. I was just saying, yeah, it can, with 10 attacks, right? So, going to AP3, 933 on the monster side, then Talent is a lot better. And we know that because 933 is bam, 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 the profile of Exocrine. And we know that 933 is pretty good from that. So, something, or even an Exocrine that got tied up. Now you're at least 3 attacks, it's AP 1. So 712 is better than 702, right? Especially in melee, gets you out of there. Screamer Killer. We know that looks good on paper. AP2 and AP3 there. Pretty fine. Again, just things that might have needed to be bailed out. And, going back to the Screamer Killer for a second, it does have Assault on the Bioplasmic Scream. Now, we don't have any way of giving this thing advance, shoot, and charge. But, advancing one turn, shooting, And then the next turn, now that everybody's all primed up, being battle shocked and plus 1 AP against, maybe around a Neurolictor. Yeah, I think it's fine. And hell, that's not to say that you need to do the advances, make use of assault into that much of a regard, but it is to say that yeah, there's play there because again, you have the freedom of just yoinkity sploinking a 12-inch moving monster and then using a 12-inch flamer somehow, some way. And it has a 90mm base, the Screamer Killer, so it's a little bit more reasonable. Now, that's just it's okay. It's okay. I've made peace with losing the Feel No Pain. I realize this is something that I wanted. Will I be using it more? Maybe. Or will I be using it? I guess is the actual question. The question is maybe. I don't think it makes my other. I don't think it makes my Crusher list currently. Um, Subterranean Assault. I can't really do that one either because again, the traffic jam situation is just you have room to work with, but you do have bases to work with as well. And I want to talk about that in depth either. Doesn't make Vanguard Onslaught. I guess this is really to say that it makes Assimilation Swarm maybe Synaptic Nexus because of 5 of Pinfall and 5 of Feel No Pain, -1 to be hit at range with Smoke for a turn. Sounds pretty nice. And it might make Invasion Fleet. But I don't play Invasion Fleet, so don't ask me for an Invasion Fleet list, really, because I despise the index detachment at this point because we had too much. It's too much. So yeah, I'm wrapping this up. Psychophage, you get a pass. It's fine. And actually might, in some circumstances, be better than fine. So thanks, GW. We appreciate the nice surprise. I appreciate the nice surprise. I'm not going to speak for anybody else on that. But yeah, if you like the video, like it. Got a comment for me, comment. And until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.